right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Bowl TV studio, the Sport of Bowling Show, a special episode today. We've got a great panel of guests for you, and we're going to talk about goats. Not the kind that scream or give milk. They are the greatest of all time goats, and this is the first of two parts. We're going to do the PBA greatest of all time today. And then next month, we're going to do the PWBA greatest of all time. And now I'm going to introduce the panelists for the show today. We've got an incredible bevy of guests for you here on the Sport of Bowling Show. They've been very gracious with their time. First, let's start off with somebody who's not normally on the Bowl TV roster, but is a bowling expert and also one of the greatest in her PWBA career, three-time major champion Tennille Milligan. How are you today? And you have a goat, right?
I do have a goat. I'm doing well. Thank you for asking, but I did bring a goat.
There you go. The screaming goat. So thank you so much for bringing the goat. And I know you've got some great picks for us that I can't wait to hear. But our next guest is also a bowling expert. He's sort of in my vein, like not so much. He's a bowler. I'm a bowler. But we didn't really compete so much on tour, but we've covered bowling for a long time. It's InsideBowling.com's Mike Flanagan. How are you today, sir?
I'm great. Looking forward to being here. I do not have a goat with me today. I get the party fail of the year, I guess.
No, you are a goat in your own way. You're in the live streaming Hall of Fame. In my book, first ballot Hall of Famer as soon as they do decide to build that thing. So thank you so much for being here. And now we've got another great guest and somebody who maybe knows more of these players that are going to be on the list and has worked with them, helped them. He's been in their corner for a lot of their titles. He's got a lot of great stories and great perspective. It's Jimmy Callahan. How are you doing today, sir?
Doing great. Looking for a fun conversation.
Yes, it should be a lot of fun. And last but not least, we have a Hall of Famer in our midst. This gentleman has bowled against many of the players that are going to be named today. And so he's got a very unique perspective on it. And he's one of the best players on the PBA 50 Tour and also an analyst for Bowl TV. Tom Hess, how are you doing today, sir?
I'm doing great, everybody. Ready to get this conversation started and figure out who we think is the greatest. I'm just curious if anybody named me.
Well, I'm seeing some head shakes.
Yeah, I'm not surprised.
2 weeks from never, and you're in.
So as always on these types of shows, it's good to have a format, right? And I think Tom Clark would be very much in approval of this format. So the way it's going to work, and this comes from an interview I did from Jason Belmonte a couple of years ago before the U.S. Open. I asked him if he thought he was in the conversation for greatest of all time, and he said, you know what? It should be a stepladder finals. It should be a top 5, right? And so I thought that was a really good way to do it. So I asked everybody on the panel to bring their top 5 greatest of all time candidates to the story. We're gonna go around the horn and we're gonna have everybody list their top 5, but in no order, and reasons why each person picked those 5 on their list. And then also maybe some reasons why they left a couple of folks off, because we're going to see some names on lists that aren't included on some of the others. And I think they're all worthy candidates. So I'm very curious to hear the criteria that everybody used to pick their 5. And then after we go around the horn, we're going to take a quick break. We're going to resort everybody on our list. You could even bring in somebody that you didn't initially pick in your top 5 if somebody swayed you to bring somebody else in there. And then we're going to list them in order from 1 to 5. And then at the end, Chase Kaufman, our producer behind the scenes, is going to tally up the points. And we're going to have our consensus greatest top 5 for this group, which, of course, will be the most important top 5 list ever done because, right, we're the best, right? Don't you agree?
Of course.
Of course. All right. So who wants to go first with their list?
I'll go first.
Okay. Tennille Milligan.
All right. Just one?
You tell us all 5 and why. And then I'm sure there's some folks that you had a really hard time not putting on your list. Tell us why you didn't include those people.
All right. So I'm going to start off with Earl Anthony, right? He's on my list. It's Earl Anthony. 43 titles, 10 majors, first to $1 million, TV appearances over 100. I mean, the list goes on and on. Earl Anthony, he's a GOAT. So another GOAT I have in there is Jason Belmonte. I know his career's not completely done. Some of these other guys aren't done either, but Jason really is just starting. I mean, 2008, I believe, is when he came on board here with PBA as an invite from Mr. Clark. But Player of the Year, again, 7 times, 32 majors, 15 majors, including the Super Slam. Fastest to $1 million. Just on and on and on. PBA Player and Rookie of the Year. There's only 5 individuals who have done that. So that's pretty impressive. And a 6-time high average award winner. Another GOAT I have is Pete Weber. He's on my pay to watch list because you never know what you're going to get. So that's always fun. 37 PBA titles, 14 in addition to PBA 50 titles, 48 regional, 9 PBA 50 regionals, 108 wins overall in the PBA tour, been on TV over 136 times, won at least one title over 4 decades. And I believe only 3 or 4 others have done that. 6 senior majors, Rookie of the Year in 1980. Only 1-time high average award winner, which was interesting. And I still think it's a travesty was never Player of the Year. Travesty. But other person on my list, Walter Ray Williams Jr., right? GOAT. I have my notes. It's a long list of notes for Walter. Bowler of the Decade, U.S. Opens, Masters, Touring Players Championships, the most money ever won on the PBA Tour, most TV appearances on the PBA Tour, 8-time high average award winner, 7-time Player of the Year, done that over 4 decades, 80s, 90s, 2000s, 2010. He was a Bowler of the Decade, so it's just a GOAT. And then my 5th bowler, which may come as a surprise to a lot, Mike Aulby. Mike Aulby was one of my GOATs. He's on the Superstar Hall of Fame award winner. He might just be a GOAT in general, not just as a bowler, but as a person. 29 titles, 8 majors. He was the first to have a Super Slam. So that is every possible major. I believe that was 6 of them. He's won the Masters 3 times, Triple Crown winner, Player of the Year twice. He's been in the top 5 over, I believe, 92 times. Finished second 15 times. Again, 1 title in 4 decades. Player of the Year and Rookie of the Year. He's an ESPY Award winner, Steve Nagy Award winner twice. And he did win high average award 1 time. So he's a GOAT in my opinion. There's a lot of GOATs. It was hard to make that decision on who to put in my top 5. Parker Bone was up there, Norm Duke. I don't know. I was just going on and on and in regards to titles, time that they won them, majors, just different things like that. So that's my top 5.
That's a great list. Is there anybody in there? Was there any criteria in particular that stood out to you that you had to use to put them on your top 5?
I did look at majors. Majors were always an important part of that in my top 5. Yes, I know some of them that I left off probably have more majors, but it was the type of major, right? U.S. Opens, Masters, that kind of did it for me. Okay,
great. It's a great list. Michael Flanagan, we're going to go clockwise. You're up next.
Yeah, first question for Tom Hess. Is your kitchen always that clean? And what was the last meal that you made there?
The kitchen being clean, of course. I've got a great wife. She takes care of everything while I'm gone. And I didn't hear your other question there, Michael.
No, you're good. You're good. That's all right. I don't know. I don't know what you,
Okay.
what you
Since
ate.
you're making fun of me, I mean, I wanted to sit outside, but we weren't prepared, and I'm not the guru that Mike Flanagan is. So you're going to have to deal with my kitchen. Sorry, Mike.
Hey,
Hate
I
to
love it.
disappoint.
I love it. Lunchtime, buddy, when we're taping this. Okay. Top five. I've got this window I can't do anything about, by the way. So thank you for that. ABC Sports back here. How about that for the GOAT episode here? All right. I want to bring up two people first. I want to bring up Duke, and I want to bring up Roth that didn't make my list. They would be 6 and 7. I had a criteria for my list. You had to be over 40 years old to make my list. So there's no Tackett on my list. Tackett is probably his trajectory is to be in the top 3 all time with what he's been doing. If he continues to do this, and we did this 10 years from now, Tackett's going to make that list and somebody's going to get bumped off. No particular order. PDW, and I won't go over and share the same stats that Tennille did such a great job going over already. I had those prepared, but for the sake of not being repetitive here, I'm going to give you some more feel in regards to my analysis. Weber winning, he had 18 titles, I believe it was, with urethane. 19 with resin, or vice versa. That's 2 Hall of Fame careers with different types of material, bowling balls. So that's a reason why Weber makes the list. That's my number one reason, followed by 5 U.S. Opens, which is our Masters golf tournament. Even though ours is called the U.S. Open and theirs is called the Masters, I think it's kind of the opposite. So if you win the U.S. Open, I think that's the hardest tournament to win. He's done it 5 times. I'm going to put Earl Anthony in there. The thing with Earl and some of these people that made my list is I'm really big into the amount of events entered and how many you win. Okay. There's a few players in tour history that have won 10% of the tournaments that they enter. Earl is one of them, 41 titles and right about 400 events. So Jason Belmonte is also on my list. Belmo has entered 271 events and has 32 titles with 15 majors. All-time major winner, our Tiger Woods. So he's on my list. Walter Ray. Walter Ray's on my list. Most titles all time. He's our Richard Petty in our sport. He entered a lot of events, 1,046 according to PBA's website currently, so over 1,000 tournaments, won 47 times with 8 majors. The percentages aren't quite there, but he is our Iron Man. I mean, what he's done is incredible. My favorite thing that I found about Walter is there was a season in 2004, 2005. Walter converted 475 out of 475 single pin leaves on the PBA tour. So I couldn't imagine doing that in the league. And I don't want to pick on Hess again. He'll tell you his percentage of everything with his little app, everything he ever left ever. Right, Tommy? For Walter, 475 out of 475. And this isn't league. This is at the highest level. Position round, Friday night. Need that spare to make the show. That year, he didn't miss one of them. I think that's incredible. That's why he has the nickname Deadeye. And then my final player that makes my list, I talked about PDW. Well, how about DW, right? And I'm not talking about Darrell Waltrip. I'm talking about Dick Weber, okay? A lot of people will say, why would you pick Dick Weber? He doesn't get mentioned very often, okay? Think about this. I want to make a Tackett comparison, both Indiana guys, okay? E.J. Tackett, when he turned 30, he is just skyrocketed, right? 3 player of the years in a row. This guy's crushing it after age 30, okay? EJ had 14 titles before age 30. You're probably saying, Mike, why the hell does this matter? Why would anybody care about that with Dick Weber? Dick Weber started bowling on the tour when it was founded. He was 30 years old when he started on tour and ended with 30 titles. And Dick Weber was won 10 of the first 23 tournaments that the tour ever had. 10 out of 23. I was talking about percentages, right? So Ray Orff, the great Ray Orff here from St. Louis, made mention to me many, many moons ago that if the PBA was founded 10 years earlier, he thinks Dick Weber would have won 50 titles. So I want to give a little bit of love to St. Louis and to DW Dick Weber.
I love it. I love that you put him on there. You're the only one, and I don't want to scoop everybody else's list, but you're the only one that put him on there. And boy, that really makes me think about it. And I did know the fact that the tour didn't really start until he was 30. And so he probably got cheated out of a lot of titles because that tour wasn't founded. And I also believe that every player that ever makes a penny on the tour owes a little residual check to Dick Weber because he built that tour more than anybody. So a great pick on your list, Mike. Let's go to Jimmy Callahan next.
All right. My list is very controversial. You're going to see that here shortly. How my criteria of the list was the people that changed the sport, people that were the best at something. So my first guy, in no particular order, my first guy is Mark Roth. He revolutionized the power game in the 70s and the 80s. He did things that nobody ever did. He won the high average 6 times. He holds the single season record for titles with 8. He made 107 shows. He was player of the year 3 times in a row, 77, 78, 79. But the number one thing to me was that he was the guy that I went home every single Saturday to look at. And I would say across the country, he revolutionized power, which is why he's on my list. Second guy, Norm Duke. He's the most versatile player I ever saw. I had the opportunity to deal with Norm with, a couple of companies. He could play from 1 to 30. It didn't matter. And in one shot, he did things that are unbelievable. 40 titles, 7 majors, third bowlers that passed 3 million. He was PBA player of the year twice, as Sunil stated. Youngest player ever to win a PBA title at 18 years old. That's crazy. And he once bowled 3 300s in a row at Cavalier in New Jersey. And he's one of only 3 bowlers to win PBA 50, Rookie of the Year, and Player of the Year in the same year. And I had to get Tom Hess's name in there. Tom Hess is one of those as well. He's on there. My number 3 guy, Jason Belmonte. He revolutionized the two-handed game. I've been with him since every major that he's ever had that he's won on tour so far. And the guy is unbelievable. 7-time player of the year, 32 titles, 15 majors, 300 games on TV, Super Slam winner. I mean, you can just keep going and going and going with Jay. My number 4 guy, Pete Weber, the most physically gifted player that I've ever saw in all the time that I was on tour, even the time that I watched tour and then that I worked on tour. The guy is incredible. I had the opportunity to deal with him for a long time. His willingness to win is unsurpassed. I mean, he wanted to win at every measure, and every time he put his shoes on, he thought he could win. 37 titles, 10 majors, U.S. Open 5 times, won the Triple Crown twice. The only man ever to do that. And my number 5 pick, Mike Aulby, has to be the best clutch player I've ever seen in all my time on watching the PBA Tour and working on the PBA Tour. If he needed in the 10th, this guy got it. There's no doubt about it. 29 titles, 8 majors, first player ever to win the Triple Crown, Player of the Year twice, first player to win Rookie of the Year and Player of the Year. You got the youngest player ever to win a major at 19 years old. One of only 2 players to win. This is a really tough one. One of only 2 players to win titles twice after qualifying 24th into the match play. That says something. That means the guy was a really good match player, and he had to make really, really key clutch shots in the 10th to win a lot of those matches, I'm sure. And he rolled the 6-300 on TV, and he won the match 300 to 279 for 579 to have the highest scoring record there. you'll see I have two guys that are left off of my list. You have Walter Ray and you have Earl Anthony. Very controversial. But, the thing with Walter Ray, my criteria was to have people that I thought were the best at something or the most unique at something. And I thought that Walter Ray couldn't play as many angles as Norm could. I think a lot of his stuff was done in one part of the lane. And I just didn't feel that he did a lot of great things. Walter Ray was a great bowler, don't get me wrong. But he was a little short of my list. And Earl, like Mike said, did a lot of really, really great things. Mike Aulby is, like you say, I like clutch. So he was my guy there. And I got to tell you, Mike Aulby's one of the nicest guys ever. That moved him up my list as well. That's all I got, Jay.
Well, thank you, man. Leaving Walter Ray and Earl off the list. That's that takes some courage. Don't you all agree? Rest of the panel?
Certainly do.
Jimmy likes to stir the pot, though, so it's no surprise to me that came from you, Jimmy.
I have criteria for every one
I love it. I love every bit of it.
I did too. I mean, I love why you chose Aulby, because of the versatility. I think a lot of people forget he won from every arrow. He fell it back from fifth arrow and won, and he played the twig and everywhere in between. So the versatility piece for sure on that one. It's tough to leave two guys off the list with that many titles. But let's hear what Mr. Hess has to say. I know your list is a little different than everybody else's.
Yeah. My list. First of all, I'm going to start with who I didn't put on. The guy, and this was hard. Not putting Pete Weber on my list. Everybody's going to say I'm insane, as Jimmy said, and I agree. I think he's the most physically gifted to ever put his hand in a bowling ball. Norm Duke, as Jimmy said, probably the most versatile player ever, could win all over the lane. And, a guy that I was going to, fifth in the titles, nobody's even mentioned him yet. Parker Bowen, man, what a great lefty. When you're talking lefties, it's got to be Earl, Aulby, and Parker. So those three guys were left off my list. Now, the theme for my list was dominance. My 5 players were all dominant over a 3-year period. Each of them won Player of the Year 3 consecutive years. One of them did it twice, and of course, that's Earl Anthony. 6 times Player of the Year, 3 consecutive. Of course, when you're talking that, you got to have Walter Ray. Quite simply, the greatest winner our sport has ever seen. Now, I'm going to go to 2 guys that absolutely revolutionized the game. Jimmy, stole my thunder. Mark Roth. Everybody wanted to throw it like Mark Roth. I wanted to throw it like Mark Roth. Mark Roth, Pete Weber were my 2 guys. Belmo, 2-handed delivery, absolutely changed the game. And then one that nobody's mentioned yet, and I'm going with it. Some people are going to say he's not there yet. I say he is. EJ Tackett. EJ is quite simply on a great run. He's 33 years old, 7 majors, 4 Player of the Year already, 3 consecutive. Mine's going to be a little bit shorter and sweeter than everybody else's, but there's my list. And again, my theme, dominance. Each of those guys won Player of the Year 3 consecutive years.
That's a great list, Tom. And I'm not saying that because I have the exact same list. I actually do. But I love the list. I love how there's a couple of different folks on everybody's list. And just to give mine real quick, my list is exactly the same as Tom. And I'll tell you, we talked a little bit about this before we went on the air. To me, the players on that list, those 5, are the most feared players. Those are the players that when they had their time, everybody was afraid of them. The only person that's on that list, and I have so many conflicting feelings about this guy, is Walter Ray Williams Jr. He won more than anybody, but I don't think the players were that scared of him. I think they thought they could beat him, but they couldn't. He was just so good. And to go against what Jimmy would say a little bit, I do think Walter Ray was incredibly versatile. I mean, 1 Player of the Year in 1986. And then he won it again in 2010, 24 years later, after the game had completely changed and Belmo was out on tour and Barnes was dominant. So I mean, he had such longevity, but he never had a bad year. If you look at from 1986 all the way till 2010, and he, obviously stayed a lot longer than he did, but he loved competing. So I don't think you can count that against him, that he stayed out there on tour and had some bad years once he got old, basically. But gosh, that guy won so much. But he's the only guy on my list that I don't think that players were afraid of. It broke my heart to not put Norm Duke on my list and Pete Weber. Pete Weber, I grew up wanting to watch him every Saturday. In fact, my dad used to make fun of me. He used to say, Jason, is he going to give you a piece of his check because you seem to care so much about whether he wins or not? And I just loved watching Pete Weber, but I couldn't put him on the list because I don't think, as fearsome as he was as a competitor, I don't think he put the fear of God into his opponents. I think everybody wanted a piece of Pete. They wanted to bowl him on TV because I think they thought, hey, Pete, if there's a cameraman that's going to distract him, I might be able to beat him. And he never won Player of the Year, so that's why I couldn't put him on the list. Norm, I think he might be the best head-to-head bowler of all time. If I had to pick one player, hey, you gotta pick somebody to bowl a match against this really great bowler with your life on the line, I probably pick Norm Duke, but I just don't think the guys were as scared of him as the rest of the guys on my list. Belmo, I think he put the fear of God in the players. When he was bowling well, I think they knew they were playing for second place. EJ, the reason I put him on that list is he's reached that level now, and I think there's still a chance that he could get to number one all time, because I just don't see anybody taking him on for the next couple of years. And if he can put up a couple more of the years that he had this last year and the year before that, when he just utterly dominated the tour, that could push him to number one all time. And I like the fact that on my list, there's still a couple of guys that can get there. And we're going to ask that question at the end of the show as well. But now that we've all put all of our players up, I want to take a quick break and let us rank our players 1 to 5. And if you want to pull somebody in, maybe that you didn't have on your list because somebody convinced you that they belong, you can certainly change that. But let's take a quick break. We'll rank everybody 1 to 5, and then we're going to go back around the room again and talk about, because this is where it gets really hard, right? Like, who is the greatest bowler of all time? That's what we really want to be able to answer. And it's a really hard question to answer, right? Because we've got 9 players out of all of us that we've picked to be the greatest of all time. But we really want to get to the bottom of who that is. So let's take a quick break. We'll rank our players, then we'll come back and we'll reveal our rankings in our next segment. All right, we are back. We have had a chance to rank our players and add players if we'd like. I'm going to go first. We're going to go back in reverse order on this round. So I will start us off with my list of top 5 of all time. We're going to start with 5 and work our way up to 1. In my book, my list number 5 is EJ Tackett. As a couple of people mentioned, it's kind of tough to put EJ on this list. I think he has reached the point with his 4 Players of the Year and 7 majors now and 27 titles where he deserves a spot in the top 5. But I love the fact that he is a player that could eventually get to the number 1 spot in this case. But I have him 5th at this point. Number 4, I have Mark Roth. I think he just did so much for to influence the power game. I think without him, you don't even have Belmo. I mean, Pete Weber looked up to Mark Roth, and so I know I did, and all the bowlers that I bowled with coming up looked up to Mark Roth, and he certainly had that aura of invincibility for a period on tour. And he went a whole season where he made almost 60% of the shows. If you think about that, back when they had 35 tournaments a year, he was almost a shoe-in to make the show. That's just sick. So I think Roth deserves a spot in consideration for the greatest of all time. This one, to me, is very difficult. Number 3 on my list is Walter Ray Williams Jr., and I could have very easily put him as high as number 1. I can't really go into why he's number 3 without talking about the other 2, but I'll give you one great story. I once had a debate with Walter Ray Williams Jr. over who was the greatest bowler of all time. I picked Walter Ray, and he refused to accept it. He took Earl Anthony, and he had a great argument for why Earl Anthony was the number 1 greatest bowler of all time. I'm going to let him win that argument, and I'm going to put Walter Ray at number 3. But I could have very easily put him at number 1 because I've seen him do things on a bowling lane that I've never seen anybody do. And I will also go against Jimmy Callahan and say I think he's tremendously versatile because I once bowled a regional with Walter Ray, and we both bowled terrible for the first 10 games of the tournament. With 2 games left, I jumped all the way to the left and hooked the whole lane. He saw I wasn't hitting my target. I was throwing it everywhere. After about 4 shots of doing that, he saw what I was doing. He moved all the way left, went off the sheet that game, and then shot 300 the last game to sneak into the cut, then won the tournament the next day. So unbelievable. He's a savant at bowling, and I think he's incredibly versatile. So I could have very easily put him number 1. Number 2, I have Jason Belmonte, 15 majors. I think he totally revolutionized the game. He might have saved bowling because I was working for the PBA at the time when he came out there. Things were in dire straits. If not for Belmo, I don't know if the Fox deal happens. I don't know if the full deal happens. I don't know if extra frame grows as quickly as it was. He was so exciting to watch, and he was so feared among his fellow players. And I still think he could get to number 1 on the list with 1 more player of the year and maybe a few more majors. I still think he's got it left in the tank. But number 1 on my list is Earl Anthony. And Walter Ray's argument for why Earl Anthony was the greatest bowler of all time was because he did his body of work in such a small period, had such a high winning percentage, was so dominant. Everybody was afraid of him. Anytime you bowled him on television, you knew you had to be perfect. He did have a losing record in title matches, but I think that's actually a good thing because he made it so often. But the one thing that makes me say Earl is the greatest of all time, it's actually 2 things. One is he retired as player of the year, then came back the next year and bowled 1 tournament and won it. It was the Masters. And then they begged him to come out and bowl the senior tour. By then, reactive resin had become a thing, and he changed his game and his swing to fit reactive resin and was an absolute terror on the senior tour for the few number of tournaments he bowled. He almost made the show every time and won just about every time he bowled. So to me, Earl Anthony is the greatest bowler of all time. So that's my list, and we will move on next to Mr. Tom Hess.
All right, JT, great list. We had the same 5 going into this round. I got to do something that I didn't think I was going to do. When we did this, I talked about dominance, and that being my criteria for the top 5. The longer I think about this has been a great call. I've been putting a lot of time and thought into it. I simply cannot leave the most physically gifted bowler ever off of my top 5 list. So he's probably going to be mad that he's number 5, but he's going to be on my list, and that's going to be Pete Weber. 5 U.S. Opens. It's travesty that he's never won Player of the Year. I think he was feared. I think he put fear into people. I've got a great story against Pete. One of the times that I made the tour out in Reno, I got to bowl against Pete on a Friday night. I go up, throw a strike. Pete goes solid 9. He is furious. I get up, throw a double. Pete throws his shot in the 3rd, doesn't see the ball hit the pins, strikes. He throws every shot, doesn't see his ball hit the pins the rest of the game, shoots 279. I lose. How can I not put that guy on my top 5 list? Unfortunately, that means Mark falls off. What ultimately led to that? Only 2. Mark 2 majors. And to be a great, the majors matter. You got to win majors. So that's going to put EJ Tackett's going to be my 4th greatest player of all time. I don't think he's done. I think EJ will move on up this list as we go. 27 wins in 235 events. 7 of those 27 wins are majors. That means 25% of the time when he wins, it's a major. That puts you on the list. Again, now, JT, we've got the same 3 guys here, and it gets hard. You make great arguments for Earl. And boy, how do I do this? It's hard. I'm going to put Earl 3. Probably way too low. I really don't have a reason for how I'm going to do these 3 guys. I mean, I consider them right now 1A, B, and C. I mean, how do you pick? So I'm going to go Earl 3, and Walter and Belmo. I mean, this to me, how do you decide between these 2 guys? As I said earlier, Walter is the greatest winner this sport has ever seen. He just got it done. 131 total PBA titles when you take all of the tours together. 47 national tour wins. But Belmo, 32 titles in just 200 and Mike gave 271. I got 265 in for total events. That's a 12% winning percentage. What's even more impressive to me in that, of his 32 titles, 15 of those are majors. Talking about showing up when it matters. Majors matter. 46% winning percentage in the majors. Got to be Walter Ray 2, Belmo 1. That's good. That's going to be my list.
Wow. That's pretty impressive. I can't say I disagree with any of it. It's awesome. I love it. I think some folks are going to be up in arms about it, and I love it. So nice job there. And it's different than my list. Even though we had the same 5, you had a different order to it. So I think that's really cool. Jimmy?
And I actually did change my 5 because I put Pete in there.
No, I love that
Mark
you
off.
added Pete in there as well.
Yep.
It kills me not to put him in my top 5, but you got, in my opinion, part of it's your heart, part of it's your brain, right? And so I went with the brain. My heart wanted to put him in there, but my brain couldn't do it. So
yeah, my heart went out. So
yeah.
I had to take, but I took one of my 2 other guys off. I mean, growing up, man, I wanted to be Pete Weber and Mark Roth, and Pete wins out on this argument.
I loved your point about Roth as well, and we haven't talked about it yet, but it doesn't seem to me like majors were as big a thing back in the day as they are now. And I think a lot of it is the tour is compressed, and you could probably speak to this, Tom, because you were out there. But back in the day, the guys didn't focus on the majors because there were just so many tournaments, right?
Yeah, back in the day, the guys got to, there was 3 seasons. They bowled almost 40 tournaments a year. Now last year there was 16 events and 5 of those majors. So a third of the tournaments are majors. Is that a good or a bad thing? When only a third of your events are majors, when you don't have all the opportunities to win, but yet you show up and win those majors. I mean, that's what does it for me, for EJ and Belmo.
Yeah, for sure. All right, let's move on. Jimmy Callahan, what is your top 5?
Mine has changed a lot. You guys convinced me. The panel is very, very persuasive. I will start at number 5 with Pete Weber. Pete Weber, the most physically gifted bowler, over 100 titles on tour. And I will tell you, Jason, there was fear. I've heard people didn't want to talk to Weber when he bowled. They stayed away from him when they were his opponent. That there was fear there when Weber was there. Weber, number 5. I think a good stat or good perspective is percentages of how long it took to get victories. That's where my next guy comes into play. EJ Tackett, number 4. He's on his way to being even further up the list, but 3 Player of the Years in a row, 4 Player of the Years overall. The major titles coming so quickly. He's definitely number 4 for me. And then you guys persuaded me. You beat me down. Number 3, Walter Ray Williams Jr. And Jason, I didn't say he wasn't versatile. I said he wasn't as versatile as I thought that Duke was. So, I mean, I've seen him do a lot of things. I got to be honest, he's a little boring to me to watch bowl. I like people that are more explosive. I like people that are more, fun to watch, but I got to put him in there. You can't deny, 131 titles. And then first and second, Earl Anthony, I got to tell you, to me, very great bowler. He was boring to watch too. I'm being very honest. He won a bunch of times. He broke all the records. He won in a very short amount of time, like Mike Flanagan pointed out. But there's no doubt in my mind who the number one player all time is. And I called Tennille and Jason a homer for Walter Ray. I'm probably the biggest homer for Jason there is. Jason Belmonte's number one. And I know what his the way that he looks at things. He looked at those percentages of getting to 1 million the fastest, to 10 titles the fastest, 20 titles the fastest, 30, and the majors. They were on his mind. And I'm going to tell you, people feared Jason. They knew when they bowled Jason, man, I'm going to have my hands full. But I have Jason Belmonte number one. So I have Belmonte number one, Anthony 2, Walter Ray 3, Tackett 4, and Weber 5.
Wow, that was a lot of changes on that list.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Very persuasive panel.
Yeah. Well, that's you're showing your open-mindedness, which I think is a great thing.
I've never been called that before.
You did it, Jimmy.
For me, open-mindedness, hard-headedness. Usually, it is.
But great list. Now we've got two people have now picked Jason Belmonte as number one all time. Wow. Okay. Let's see if the trend continues. Mike Flanagan, let's hear your top 5.
Well, first of all, I want to see if Sue could grab me something out of that fridge. Maybe a yogurt. This show's
That is
running
a shiny fridge,
long.
isn't it, Mike?
I'm going to tell you, that's a PBA 50 high dollar fridge back there. I Google search that fridge at Best Buy. Shout out to Best Buy if you want to sponsor the show. And that is an expensive refrigerator. So no more saying, hey, will you grab this meal, Flanagan? Hey, no, not anymore, Tom.
Is that a counter depth fridge?
Wow. Sound like you shopped
These
a
are
few
brutal.
fridges there, Jason.
And we had you muted, Tom. So if you wanted to go for it.
Well, the first thing I want to say, it's not Best Buy, it's Warner Stallion. So, I mean,
Okay.
come on, if we're going to shout out, at least shout out where I spend my money.
Yeah.
And, I'm just glad that everybody, I kind of feel like I'm back at Team USA. I was the target, everybody was picking on me for a week out in Reno. And hey, I can't wait to spend a couple of days with a couple of these guys in Vegas here next week on this panel. We're going to get back at them. Oh, yeah. Who's coming? I'm just not going to do it in public. I'm going to be the nice guy and let Flanagan have his fun, while everybody else gets to see it here. I'm going to beat him up when we get to Vegas.
Michael, let's hear your top 5. Did you have any changes like the rest of us have?
No change at all here. No change. Number 5, Dick Weber. I mentioned earlier why Dick Weber made my list. Original founding father of the PBA Tour. He was 30, not his fault that's when the tour started. But I think he would have gone on to win a bunch of titles. So Dick Weber, number 5 on my list. Favorite Dick Weber story. I think it's cool to go on YouTube and watch him bowl on the Late Show with David Letterman. David Letterman was one of my favorite late night shows that there is. And I think a lot of people have kind of forgotten about him. But I loved it when he was on there. Aulby also made an appearance on there. So a couple of my faves there. So Dick Weber, number 5. Number 4 on my list. And this is tough. I got to bowl nationals with this guy a couple times. And I also got to bowl down at La Raza with this guy. And he also walked in with Pete Weber to Fairlanes in St. Louis when I was just a kid and couldn't be any nicer. And is super intelligent about our sport. And also really good at pitching horseshoes also that we didn't talk about. He is a 2-sport athlete. I know a lot of people don't think about that. But I've got Walter Ray, number 4. And I'm really, I want to talk about reactive resin bowling balls and how it helps straighter players, okay? and Walter played the lanes straighter when he dominated. Okay, that's not to say that he was one of the best at playing deep inside when the lanes were burnt up and the way the lanes were oiled differently back in the past. He was very versatile. He was definitely. But reactive resin helped his game. Now he does have one player of the year with urethane, and I think that that's one of the things that makes Walter so great is because he, I'm kind of contradicting what I'm saying here, but I can't put him above the top 3 players. But he is our Richard Petty. I really do believe he's our Richard Petty. I mean, he's got the most titles all time. And one thing I really admire about Walter Ray is he just never quits. I mean, he is still bowling. He's tried two-handed. He's done so many things. And I love that, even at his age now, he has a YouTube channel where he likes to post his bowling. He's always done an incredible job interacting with the fans as well. And I know it's off topic from him being 4th on my list, but Walter is an underrated ambassador in our sport. And I like his opinions. Sometimes I don't agree with Walter, but the great thing is you can sit down and have a conversation with him and you can agree to disagree. And his passion still is there for bowling big time. And, his dominance here, I got a few things here. 7-time player of the year, won 3 times in a row. We talked about that. He won 17 consecutive seasons in a row. And the reason why I'm talking him up is because I feel bad putting him 4th. That's what I'm talking about. But Walter Ray, only player to also convert the Big 4 on television, which is kind of an oddity, which is kind of cool for Walter. But 6 titles with urethane, 41 with reactive for Walter Ray. So I don't know where his career would have been if reactive didn't ever come out. So that's probably gives him a little bit of a rank down the list. And I know it's going to be unpopular, especially with Walter himself, probably. So sorry about that, Walter. Number 3, PDW is number 3 on my list, 37 titles. But the thing about him that I like the most is that he was able to win so much with reactive and so much with the urethane bowling ball. He was feared on the lanes, as you guys talked about, and I played wiffle ball in his driveway when I was like 12. So that's why he gets 3rd on the list. And I do think he's the best physical talent of all time. And the reason why I have him so high, not only because he's from St. Louis and so am I, but I think Pete, if he wouldn't have battled those issues that he's had, that he struggled with personal health, with some of the choices that he made, I think he would be the greatest bowler of all time. And I've got 2 points to this when I wrap this up with the top 5 that'll also let you know why Pete's so high on my list. But Pete Weber's number 3. Number 2 is Earl Anthony. The one other thing that hasn't been talked about is I've heard a lot of stories, and I wasn't able to put this together for this show today. But when I talk to folks like Aulby, Couch, even a little bit, some of these other lefties, Parker, about the greatest lefties of all time, and Walter Ray, they talk about how Earl Anthony won tournaments, and he was the only lefty that would make the cut, and he would run away with these things, right? So Earl's the greatest lefty of all time. So I put him number 2, and number 1 is Belmo. Belmo is my number 1. I think major titles is a really big deal. I also think strike percentage is a big deal. And I also think that because he's still bowling, who knows where he's going to get to. Heck, he could win some dual pattern tournaments like Norm Duke did at the end of his career and go back to back. Belmo, he may go down as the greatest winner of all time, but he truly did revolutionize the game with power. He's Mark Roth 2.0, so to speak. So I do want to talk about 2 quick things here. One is my lineup with these 5 players. Okay. My lineup with these 5 players. Leading off is going to be Dick Weber. Bowling second is going to be Walter Ray. Bowling third is going to be Earl Anthony. Bowling fourth is going to be Jason Belmonte. And bowling fifth is going to be Pete Weber in my lineup here. And the reason behind that is I think Dick is going to be the perfect leadoff bowler to communicate what the lanes are doing. And Walter's going to strike right behind him. And you got your lefty right there in the middle of the lineup. Sometimes Earl would bowl fifth, by the way, depending on what pattern's out there. And Belmo, the one knock I have on Belmo is the PBA league. He's not won the PBA league, and there's been multiple times in a team setting that he hasn't been able to deliver. But Pete Weber, I believe, is one of the greatest team bowlers of all time. So I like Pete Weber bowling 5th on that team. The last thing I have for you guys is think about the 5 players that I selected. All right. Who would you want to have to throw a strike for your life? Okay. So let's start with my 5th guy, Dick Weber. He goes up. He could 5-7 very easily, right? So I don't think I want that. So that's why he's 5th. Walter Ray. I need a little more power. Now he's bowling two-handed, so maybe two-handed I'd rank you a little higher, Walter. But anyway, so he's next. Pete, man, Pete definitely would be a good one to throw a shot for my life. But he did also coin the 3, 6, 7, 10 is known as the Pete Weber spare, so I don't want him to leave that for my life. Earl Anthony, I know, is going to hit the pocket every single time, and I just hope his gyro can get through the pins for my life. But Belmo, oh my gosh, if that dude hits the 1-3, I'm probably living. So that's why Belmo's number 1.
Like the list. I like it. What's funny for me is the person I would pick isn't even on my list. Right? And it's probably Liz Johnson, actually, but that's next month's episode. But I pick Norm Duke to be the one to throw a strike for my life or to win a match for my life. But I didn't have him in my top 5. But I love the way you did it, and I wish we could make a team of these players. That would be pretty cool, like a dream team. Tennille Milligan, you've been sitting here waiting and listening. How have you changed your mind, if at all, since we heard from you in the first round?
All right. I've changed my mind almost. You almost got me there. One of them did move another player up in my order from my original, but yes. But the person to throw a strike from my life is Tommy Jones. So, and he didn't make my list, but he's throwing it for my life. All right. So my number 5, I loved everybody talking about EJ Tackett. I love EJ Tackett. I love to watch EJ Tackett. He's just too young for me. He's too young to put on this greatest of all time list. Do this again in 3 years, I'm sure he's on there for me. But right now, Mike Aulby. Mike Aulby's still my number 5. And the Super Slam has got me. It is signature done Super Slam Mike Aulby. Again, he has won in the 70s, the 80s, the 90s, and the 2000s. Just longevity. He's just my guy at number 5. Moving down in my list after hearing everybody talk was Pete Weber. Pete Weber is my number 4, and he is truly on my pay to watch list. If I'm at an event, I know Pete's going to be there. You got my money at the door. I'm still going to watch Pete compete at the top of his game, sitting where he's at. He's just phenomenal, fun to watch all the time. I'm sad he's still never won Player of the Year, but he's my Player of the Year every year. He's just fabulous. Love him. Number 3, moving up, is Earl Anthony. Earl Anthony was originally my number 4, but now he is my number 3. And it went back to talking to some other players about Earl Anthony. And Mike had said it about the lefties, right? This wasn't a matter of a left or right for me, but Earl would still make the show. Earl would still win. Earl would still make the cuts when no other lefty did. So he was just great. Number 2, he's not quite number 1 yet because he is still competing. And that's Jason Belmonte. He will be number 1 at some point, just not right now for me. So you guys know who my GOAT is. And yes, Jimmy, I'm going after my California boy here, Walter Ray. He's my GOAT. He's my GOAT. There's no deny. I mean, again, 4 decades. Player of the 80s, 90s, 2000s, 2010. He has all these titles going on, Masters, Touring Players Championships everywhere. And I will have one story about Walter Ray. We got to go compete at the World Cup together in 2009 in Malaysia. And I have never seen a mob of people follow individuals through a mall. And it was all because we were bowlers. And they were lining up. And Shalinzu Keefley was there with us. And we were kind of getting nervous and watching. And we're like, why are these people following us? What is going on? And she goes, they know who you guys are. And Walter Ray was literally on a billboard, all because of bowling. And so he is my GOAT.
Well, I love that somebody picked Walter Ray. Like I said, it was really difficult for me not to, because he's won so much, and it might be because he's so human and he'll talk to me that made me put him down further on my list. I don't know, but that's great. So so we got our lists. We're going to take a quick break. Chase Kaufman's going to tally up the points, and we're going to come back and give you the full list of 5 of this panel's greatest of all time in PBA history, and we'll have our number 1 when we come back. All right, folks, we have our list. Chase Kaufman has tallied up the points, and here it is. Drum roll, please. I'll start with number 5. Number 5, EJ Tackett with 5 points. So there's a couple players that didn't make it to the top 5. Mike Aulby, Dick Weber, and Mark Roth. Those were players that were named on our lists that didn't make it into our final top 5, but obviously great players, and arguments can be made for each of them in this greatest of all time argument. Number 4, Pete Weber with 7 points. Number 3, Walter Ray Williams Jr. with 17 points. Number 2, Earl Anthony with 19 points. And number 1, I'm surprised he got there on this list, Jason Belmonte, the greatest bowler of all time, according to our panel, with 23 points. I want to go around and ask your guys' opinions on each of this list. And do you feel good about it? Do you feel like the world is going to accept that this panel has decided that Jason Belmonte is the greatest bowler of all time? Or are we going to have to hide when we go out to these tournaments for the next year, saying you guys don't know what the heck you're talking about? Neil, let's start with you.
Well, I'm so glad you guys are hitting the road and not me. That's all right. I am a little surprised that Belmo got the number 1 pick so far, so early, just because of time frame on there. I mean, there's no denying it. He's phenomenal, but he ain't done. And I know he has a quote that he said, what was it, a cup last year or this year, where he doesn't want to be, the best in the world. He wants to be the best ever. Well, there's no denying he is. He will be. But yeah, I am a little surprised he was number 1 over a few others. And then EJ Tackett made the top 5 already. I said he will, but at this time already. So that's where I'm a little surprised, and you guys are going to take the heat.
Well, we're more than happy to take it. We're tough, right, Mike?
Yeah, no problem.
Yeah, we are. So, Mike, are you a little surprised that Belmo, I mean, obviously, you had him number 1 on your list, so you're probably not, but were you surprised that everybody else, put him as high as we did?
No, I don't think so. I'm totally good with Belmo being number 1. I am really anxious to see how he does the next 3 to 5 years, right? Typically, when players hit that 45, 46 range, they start getting ready for the PBA 50 tour. I mean, it's just that's what's kind of happened in the past. You have some rare occasions like Norm winning a couple of titles, Walter winning a Player of the Year at age 50 as well. He's the oldest player to win Player of the Year. I think I forgot to mention that earlier. That's why I had him 4th on my list. Sorry, Walter, again. But I think the list is good. And maybe to fans of bowling just in general, my favorite rivalry was Pete versus Walter. Whenever they bowled each other, you had a guy that played him much straighter on television. You had Pete who was going to hook the whole lane, right? and Pete's record against Walter was not very good. So as a Pete Weber fan, you just had a lot of respect for Walter in that particular case. Well, right now in the era that we're in, we've got Belmo and EJ, right? And I think we're going to talk about him later, but you've also got this kid, Anthony Simonson, whose trajectory could go around everybody we've talked about here today, but he's got to perform, right? He hasn't been able to have a long enough period to show that he's going to perform like that. And you kind of got to give the nod to these guys that have done it already. But right now we could be watching the greatest period of PBA bowling history, with Belmo still able to win, EJ in his prime, and Simo pre-prime, right? So we might get a chance to see some pretty spectacular television this year on CW, where all three of those guys could be making shows, not to mention the other cast of characters that we have on this tour. They're just uber talented.
Awesome. Yeah, I agree. And we will certainly talk about that at the end after we go around the horn. What does somebody need to do to get to the top of the list and knock Belmo off? And what does Belmo need to do in order to solidify his position? He's got EJ breathing down his neck. Jimmy Callahan, what is your impressions of this list? You had, some pretty interesting perspectives coming in, and how are you feeling coming out?
Oh, I mean, I agree with the changes that I made, adding Earl and Walter Ray, but Jason's end goal is to have 10 players of the year and 20 major titles. So that's what his goal is at this point. We've talked about it in the past, him and and I don't ever doubt anything that guy says he's going to do. I've seen him do crazy, crazy things over the years. I've been fortunate that I was with him for every major, and you know what? Man, he's pretty good when it matters. And like you say, you have that rivalry now. I think over the years, every sport has had rivalries. And I think Mike made a very good point of Weber against Walter Ray. Now it's Tackett against Belmo. And like he said, Simo's in there too. That threesome of guys, you're going to see a lot of those guys over the next 4 or 5 years. But I will say this, the one thing about EJ, it's very hard to continue to win every single year. I mean, Jason has had years where he's won 7 or 8 times, or he didn't win 7 or 8, he won 4 or 5 times. And then the next year he didn't win at all. Like this past year, they made it like he's washed up and ready to be done. He made, 4 or 5 shows, and he won a doubles with Bill O'Neill, but it's hard to continue to win a lot of times. You remember in a couple of years ago, EJ couldn't win on TV at all. So, I mean, it's going to be hard for him to continue to go through and go forward. But I think if there's anybody that can, it will be him. But I like the rest of the list. I think it's very good.
Yeah, I think you make a good point there, which makes it a little tougher for us. There just are fewer tournaments now, right?
Yeah.
And so, back when Earl and Roth were dominant and there was a big rivalry there between those two guys and obviously the differing styles, they had 35 tournaments where both of those guys could get 6 or 7 titles a year. Whereas now, if EJ's pulling 6 titles down, there aren't any tournaments left for anybody else to win, right? So,
right.
So for sure, that I think also what makes it so amazing that they're even in the conversation in terms of numbers of titles with some of those other guys that have a lot more tournaments to bowl. Tom Hess, are you happy with our list?
Yeah, I am. For me, I mean, it was really hard between Walter and Belmo. I mean, look at what Walter's done, the longevity, 47 times, 131 total PBA titles. But I got to give it to Belmo, 15 majors. I mean, half, 46%. And, something I want to talk about with EJ, as we're talking about who could get there, and what I think separates EJ is just his mental. He just doesn't care. You know what I mean? He can at the players this year. Who'd have thought at the players that EJ was going to miss the first cut or they cut to the half, but then turns around, fires it off, and boom, wins again. And I'm trying to get there. Jimmy was talking about how it's hard for EJ to win with the short amount of events and how quickly they are. To me, over the last 3 to 4 years, EJ has been the guy that's been most prepared to come out and get the job done. And I don't see that stopping. He's got a lot going on. He's a new dad. Trip going on almost 2 years old now. He's a business owner. They're building a new house, but he's got a great support system at home. And I think, if we were to do this again in 5 or 10 years, I think EJ is going to be up there at number one.
Yeah, I'll tell you, I think to me, that's what Belmo needs to do. He needs to get himself so far ahead of EJ. EJ can't catch him. And I think one thing that strikes me, and I'm really happy that we put Belmo at number one on the list, because to me, Belmo has every quality that all of those other players on the list have, right? He's as exciting as Pete Weber. He's got the mental game of a Norm Duke. He's as accurate as Earl Anthony. I once saw his Cats numbers on a 290 game he bowled on TV that just made me think, oh my God, this guy has Mark Roth's power, but Earl Anthony's accuracy. It's unbelievable. And he's just so good at everything. And here's the thing that I think out of all of it describes Belmo the best. The first tournament I ever covered with Extra Frame was the World Series of Bowling in Detroit. The first pattern was the shark pattern. He didn't get a check. And I ran into him at the end of the week. And I said, hey, how come you didn't get a check this week? And he, on a paper napkin in the bar, drew the pattern for me and explained why he wasn't good on the shark pattern. 4 years later, they stopped putting the shark pattern out because nobody could beat him on it. I mean, he will always figure out a way to be the best. And so that's what makes him so great. But again, EJ to me is so amazing because we've seen his mental game improve over the years. He's always had the talent. And in the last couple of years, watching him and Belmo, PBA's got a great series on YouTube right now, PBA Rivalries, Belmo and EJ. Watch EJ's progression with his mental game as he bowls Belmo. And two of the greatest matches I've ever seen were two matches where EJ and Belmo bowled each other the last couple of years. One was the World Championship the last year, and then one was another World Championship where Belmo threw urethane, EJ threw reactive. Those guys don't make mental mistakes. Watching them compete against each other is like watching God versus Jesus. It's unbelievable. It's so fun to watch. It's the highest level bowling I think we've ever seen in the history of the sport, and I'm looking forward to seeing how it plays out. Last question. What does somebody, EJ, Simo, Belmo, need to do to walk away and say, this is it, I'm number one and nobody's ever going to touch it? Let's start with you, Tennille.
Stay healthy. Stay healthy out there, fellas. Prepare. There aren't as many tournaments, but make the most out of the ones that you have. So that is being prepared. Looking at some of the numbers on here, especially with EJ, you guys mentioned how, mature he's become. It's been fun to watch because you can't see it on television. I got to work, with him a little bit when he was on Junior Team USA. And when I say work with him a little bit is be the team manager and watch the maturity from the time that he was, a young 16 years old to now being a father. So if he continues to keep his head on straight, he's unstoppable. I could see him leading averages again, 5th straight year. That will be fun to watch. But Simo, same thing for him. Be prepared. And I think he will be. I think everybody will be, knowing that there are limited chances out there. So don't mess up.
Okay. Health is important. I know Simo did have some health issues this last year. But what do you think Simo needs to do, Mike, to get into this conversation and maybe end up at the top of the heap at the end?
Yeah, health is a big deal, and it was back related, which scares me a little bit. Over the years, I believe when Roth came out, I remember Pete telling me that he told his dad, I don't want to throw it like you, Dad. I want to throw it like Mark Roth. And I think there was a discussion of, if you throw it like that, you ain't going to last very long out here because it takes too much wear and tear on your body, right? And then there's been other players over the years that have had that same exact, sentiment or things that we've said about them. And Belmo was one, right? Belmo was one that said, man, how long is this guy going to be able to put that much torque, at the release, and these players that plant nowadays also really can mess up your lower body. So Simo's going to have to stay healthy. And Simo bowls on the edge, right? And on our list that we talked about, Pete Weber, I said, Pete's got himself into some trouble here and there. He's been suspended from the tour, things like that. And, that has gone on to hurt his career from a longevity standpoint and an all-time greatest rankings. And Simonson, at times, his head can get the best of him. So I think that he probably doesn't want to lose that edge because it's a competitive advantage that he has, and it's scary to bowl the guy. We talked about players like that on this show. But I do think that he needs to figure out that right middle ground of being edgy, being ferocious out in the lanes, but also at the same time not doing anything that crosses the line that could hurt him upstairs mentally while he's performing, or possibly end up getting suspended from the tour. So I think he just needs to mature a little bit, which I think he will. And I look forward to seeing where Simo goes.
Okay. Very good answer. Jimmy, you've had a chance to think about this a little bit, and you worked with all of these players. What do you think somebody's going to need to do to put their name at the top, make it undisputed GOAT?
I think Belmo has to stay interested. That's the whole key. He's in his mid-40s. He's got 4 young kids. He has to travel 4.5 hours from Orange to Sydney to get here. Is he going to get tired of the travel? He's got plenty of money. So, I mean, for him, it's a matter of staying interested and staying, motivated to continue to do that. And I think as he gets older, that's going to get tougher and tougher for him. I know he said in the past that he was with us a little bit that, he might do the Tiger Woods thing where he plays just a few of the majors. And so we'll see how long he continues to be on the grind and do it all the time. That's the biggest thing for Jay. I think EJ, his biggest thing is, I can't remember who said it. He doesn't care. EJ gets up and gives 150% every single shot. And as long as he continues to do that and has that, the mind getting stronger and stronger, EJ is going to continue to get better. A guy that I think is going to really, I know he's got a really, really long way to go. Simo's fantastic. He actually won a tournament here in Vegas yesterday. So he's still bowling well. He's healthy. But I think Chris Vi is a guy that is really going to make some strides. I mean, he won a title last year, made a bunch of shows in majors. He's won a U.S. Open, big Team USA player. I think Chris Vi could win a bunch of titles. I know he's very, very far away, but I'm a really big Chris Vi guy. But I like that's what everybody has to do.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, certainly a pretty tall order, even for some of the younger guys, like Dio Bernard, for example, I think is somebody that we could be talking about, at some point. But man, there's a pretty big mountain to climb for all those guys that are just getting started. Tom Hess, are you happy with our list, and anything to add in terms of what you feel like Simo or EJ would need to do to get to the top of the mountain?
Well, I think EJ is on his way. I don't think EJ needs to change anything that he's doing. He just needs to keep doing what he's doing. And unfortunately, I think that's kind of, in a way, a little bit of bad news for Simo in catching EJ. As Mike said, I think Simo, I love him. I consider him a dear friend. But I think sometimes he lets things outside of his control bug him. He's very outspoken. He expresses when he feels that things are done wrong. He expresses that, and I love him for that. But if he would just focus on what he needs to do, he's considered by many the guy with the biggest tool bag, the most tricks. He can shove it up the lane. He can hook the lane. He can do whatever he needs to do to get it done. The good news for him, he's 4 or 5 years younger than EJ. So he's just still getting into his prime, and he's already got 5 majors, 17 or 18 titles. I forget. I'm not going to look down at my notes, but, and then for Belmo, it's hard to say that. I don't think Belmo's on the rise anymore. I think Belmo's been there. I think he's still very much in contention, and nobody would be surprised if he went out and won Player of the Year this year. But I think Belmo is slightly past his prime, so he can add to that and make it even harder for EJ and Simo to catch him. But it's going to be an interesting, next decade or so. And the guy that nobody's really mentioned yet that I want to bring up and put on one heck of a show against one of the guys that's already on that list, Ethan Fiore. Young man working hard, lives, breathes bowling. He works hard. We just watched him go to that 7-frame roll off against EJ Tackett out at the World Series of Bowling, of course, later. Won the Players for his first title. He's got a title. And, he could be one. He's 18. What are we going to be talking about Ethan Fiore 20 years from now? Hopefully the PBA comes around and they get more than 12, 14, 15 events. And if they can get it back to where the guys on the tour are bowling, 25 or 30 events again, and there's some young ones coming.
Yeah, I'm glad you mentioned Ethan, and of course, there's even a whole crop of youth players like Landon Jordan, who made the U.S. Open show. Who I'm surprised Mike didn't already put in the top 5, because he picked him to win the U.S. Open this year, which was an amazing pick.
Well, JT, I'm sorry to interrupt, but that's a great point that you bring out. The young kids today have so many opportunities between junior gold, the SYCs, all the youth events, and all of the coaching and everything that they can get at such a young age in the college programs. I mean, it's going to be harder and harder for these guys to stay at the top than it was 10 or 15 years ago, just by the sheer number of people that are coming out and how early they're getting good. And there's some really, really good ones now that are really young.
Yeah, it's an exciting time to be watching bowling. I think we should do a show, top 5 youth players of all time. I'm pretty sure one of our panelists would be on the list for the female version of that in Tennille Milligan. But thank you guys so much for coming on the show. It was a lot of fun. Next month, we'll be doing this same show for the PWBA. So be sure to include in the comments your early votes for who you think belongs in that top 5 and who the greatest of all time is. And we'll certainly factor that in with the panel. But we hope you enjoyed the show. We won't be doing a final frame this month, but we'll be doing one next month to recap both of the shows for PBA and PWBA. I'll put my final spin on that. So for now, we're going to say goodbye. Thank you so much for watching the Sport of Bowling show. And until next time, may you fill every frame.